Hello. So I thought I might as well do a recording on this, just while I've got it up. So there we go. So right, no, come on. So everything looks okay for the most part. The way you've approached it's fine. Couple of things though, I'm looking at, or I'm kind of catching. I'm looking at it. Um, a couple of your seams are in places that I wouldn't necessarily put them. Um, or I'd kind of sort out the geometry in that area to make it a little bit neater. But I am also seeing, if you kind of zoom out a little bit, you see this little white line appear. That happens on both sides. That's basically the inside of the mesh poking through. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because that's basically just Maya saying it can't handle the distance, the draw distance between the back face and the front face of this. But what I'm thinking is because this is meant to be a plastic truck or like a Lego truck kind of thing, this is only going to be at a certain size, so if we were to zoom in, the cloth would be a little bit thicker. You know, this looks like really thin, realistically thin cloth if this was a proper size truck. But if this is meant to be a toy, we can make this a little bit thicker, just a little bit. But then that'll also give you a little bit of distance to work on some of these UVs and stuff. Also, just looking at this again, most of it is looking okay. Um, I don't see the sewing errors because I'm able to sew all these things back on. Unless these weren't the sewing errors you meant. Was it sewing errors? Okay, here's your video. I'm not sure. I projected the front part. I don't know about the gun wrap, so then I kind of go to code and so there are the edges. I'm not merged even though the object is merged. See, I'm not sure which bits you mean, so I'm just going to go through basically UV this. I don't need to do that. But what I will do is just take all these outside faces and just scale them out a little bit. Just to give that sense of this is a little bit more of a thicker material. I'll make sure it's set to. So using that transform tool just to get up a little bit. Because if this is made of some sort of cloth, cotton, or even some sort of plastic, you know, it'd be thicker. If we were to zoom in, it'd be thicker. Um, cool. So, let's have a look at the geometry before we start off. Yeah, I think overall that's pretty okay. Pretty good. Okay. All right, so let's just do automatic. So, yeah, how to approach this. You say that you did automatic projection stuff. You know, that's absolutely one way we can start it off. Boom. Now remember, whatever it gives us here isn't necessarily what we need to use because this shape in particular is a bit of an awkward shape. But remember, the automatic projection, it's 6 projections, and basically whatever side is facing predominantly within a 45 degree of, say, this camera, it gets taken into its own shell, taken into its own piece. So all this bottom bit here is facing pretty much directly down, so that gets taken into its own piece. And that's just a really awkward piece to use, but we can deal with that. Okay, so let's just go through and sew this together. What I'm going to do is, we've got, okay, so we've got an end. This might be the problem area. I'm just looking through, I missed this bit. You've got an end gun on one side, this edge here. On this side, which is not even showing up on here. So, yeah, just this corner here is giving you an end gun where it's been sealed up over here. So I can just tiny like that. I can just hit that, sort that out. Okay, so it's right there. Okay, so it's that corner front left. So I'll reproject that. So that might be giving you the issue of something not sewing, or just in general the UV is not kind of acting right. Okay. One thing, just looking at this geometrically, one thing I am kind of looking at is just the shape of this, just to go off and be a little bit of a tangent, the shape of this kind of canopy. It's a little bit unnatural. I think if we just take this middle span and just bring it down a little bit, maybe even same for here, like that. Maybe for these sides. So from the side, I'm looking at this sag, and from the front, I'm looking at just this sag, and from the top, I think if we take these bits and just scale them out a little bit, bring this bit in a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Because get where you're coming from with those kind of waves. It's kind of like that fabricy, trying to get that fabricy look across. But I think, especially with something like this, the simpler shape is the more readable. Is going to be better for you. So just very, very nice, simple. If you've got these poles in the corners, this nice sag coming from the side, from the front and the back, the nice sag, and from the top, just nice and simple, straight lines like that. That's going to look a little bit nicer. Okay. Sorry about that. Reproject again. There we go. Right, so let's sew all this stuff together. So what I would be thinking about when I would be unwrapping this or when I'd sew it together is, what do I want to be, how am I going to bring down the amount of poly shells? Because obviously we've got 11 shells here, which I'm going to increase this number a lot in a second, but with a purpose. So we've got 11 shells here. We want to bring this poly count, this UV shell level way down, obviously. Now, one way to do that would obviously be the top and the bottom. So like basically the inside and the outside as two separate shells. That's the easiest way of doing it. That's probably the way I would advise you doing it. So doing like the outside. Sorry, there's sirens in the back. And then the inside. But just a couple, well, there's no but involved at all. We just got to sew these bits back together in clumps first. So I'm going to take basically the top bit, there we go, move to the side, and I'm going to sew on each one of these basically plain. So this front plane section, side plane, side plane, side plane. On each one of these sides as well. So you can basically see that we've got a side here, side here, and side here. So on each four of these four sides, I'm just going to sew them on. So there, so there, and so, maybe so, like that. So here and here, like that. And then just like those corners, I left those unsewed at first because I didn't know how they'd look when they first get sewn on. There we go. So that's all the top bit sewn on like that. Let's hit that with a little bit of Unfold 3D just to kind of smooth it out a bit. Why there are so many sirens today? Like that. And then the other pieces, sew them onto the inside bit exactly the same way. So let's grab these side bits, sew them on together, top bits, oops, so them on together. Let's hit, come on, let's hit. There we go. There we go. Let's hit that with an Unfold 3D. Relax a little bit. Cool. Let's sew them corners together. All these little bits here. Oh, this might be the issue we're talking about, actually. Why can't I sew these bits together? Where are you? Oh, there we go. Okay. I accidentally hidden that geometry on the inside then. That was what's going on. Cool. Okay, so we've got those two pieces, and those are really the... There we go. My is the new version of my here. It's acting a little bit weird, or a new update kind of thing. So I've got my two pieces. So these are the two pieces I'd like to have basically at the end. So I'm taking down that 11 poly count down to 2 poly count, or 2 UV shells, I should say. My outside and my inside. We have still got this bit, which is obviously all this little depth, this thickness here going around. I'm going to sew that onto the outside section first. Now, I've done this before. I'm basically going to break this up into individual chunks. So each one of these individual UV faces is going to get broken up into its own individual one. And then I'm going to sew that back onto the main outside piece. So let's cut all those. Like that. So they're all separate. Obviously, our poly count's gone way up there. Side, and then I'm just going to sew these on. To the side there, to the side there, there. Ooh. Go. There we go. Is there any left? Oh, there's still a few left. That. Okay, so send them on out individually like that. Cool. Now you see our the poly shell, UV shell's gone down to 2, which is good. And I'm just gonna kind of sew all these little triangles together. Now I don't know if this was if anything I've done here has kind of solved the issue with why it isn't sewn together. If it's not, obviously just let me know. But UV wise, you had it pretty much, you had it on the right direction. It's just obviously taking down that poly count, that UV shell count into something much more manageable, smaller and manageable. Because now we can fill our UV sheet up as best we can. We've got a little bit of space we can put other stuff in. So, if you had like bunting or anything kind of draping over this, well, there you go. You could put it inside here. You could also put other stuff entirely. I don't know what's going on with my Maya at the minute. You put other stuff entirely into this. Well, there you go. So yeah, if that helps, cool. If that doesn't, I guess just trying a little bit more, trying and be a bit more clear about what is actually going wrong, what's not actually happening, or even do a little screenshot about this bit isn't something to this bit, or if there's an error message coming up, what is that error message?